Welcome to all. Today we are going to begin with the story The Night We Won the Buick. This story has been written by John Griggs. He's written a wonderful story, something that is going to touch your heart, something that is going to teach you something that is going to teach you how honest one should be, what is the true thing about wealth. What exactly is more richness? Is it money? Is it your nature, your character, truthfulness, honesty? So let's read the story and directly see what the writer has to tell us all about. It was just before World War II. We were the only family in our New York town that didn't own a car. I was a typical teenager. Typical means a normal teenager. Just like everybody else, I was also a typical teenager. And to me, no car, when most others had one, was disgraceful. Disgraceful means shameful. Our daily shopping trips were made in a small two-wheeled basket cart drawn by an ancient pony that my mother had named Barkis after the character in David Copperfield. Bonnie Barkis was a comic eyesore. Eyesore? Well, eyesore means something which is very ugly and very offensive. Now this little pony was a very big, not very neat and clean kind of a horse or pony, and it was an eyesore for the people around. Every clop of his hooves showed our poverty. Clop is the sound which is made when when the horses walk. And what are hooves? Hooves are those shoes which are made they are nailed to the foot of the horse so that they have a better grip. So when the horse moved, those hooves made a clopping sound. Right. So this is, the narrator finds it as if it shows their poverty. How does this show it poverty? Well, it just reminds him that he doesn't have a car and they have to do all their traveling and everything in a two-wheeled cart. We were poor. My father's salary as a clerk would have been enough had he not given half of it to support his ill and poor relatives. Even our house was mortgaged. Mortgaged is to give away something. The house was the security or guarantee against which the family had taken a loan. They had given their house as a guarantee on behalf of which they had picked up some loan, because they were poor and they needed the money. Mother consoled the family by saying, "If you have character, you have the better part of wealth." Consoled means to give emotional strength and comfort. So mother generally gave the strength to the family people, to the members, and kept on repeating that if you have character, you have better part of wealth. So what exactly is wealth according to her? It's not money, it's not the finances, but it is actually the character of a person, which is very, very important for the person. My bitter reply, bitter was a little sour, bitter kind of a thing, a harsh reply. My bitter reply was, "You can't buy a car with it." Yet she succeeded in making poverty tolerable in all other respects. Now, what were the other respects? She tried to make the best of the food for the family. She tried to decorate the house and with whatever little things they had, but it was well decorated and well maintained house. Now let's see this again. Yet she succeeded in making poverty tolerable in all other respects. Our home had charm. Mother knew the secret of using a few yards of right chintz. Chintz is a cloth, a cotton cloth, glanced cotton cloth, printed one. Of the right chintz and a little paint in the right places. That means wherever needed, she kept decorating the house as and when required. But the garage still stabled Barkis and not a car. The garage in the house, generally what do we keep in the garage? The cars. But since they didn't have the car, they had stabled. Stable is a place where we keep horses, where horses stay. And stabled here has been used as a verb, where it is being mentioned that they had kept the horse Barkis out there. Suddenly there arrived a moment which was to convert my shame into a blaze of glory. Now, something would have happened, something was going to happen, or it happened, that changed the entire shameful thing which was the narrator was going through into a blaze of glory. Glory is a state of high honor. But why was he shameful? Simply because he didn't own a car where everybody else owned a car. For weeks, a new Buick Roadmaster. Now, what's a Buick? Buick is a car. It's actually the name of a car. For weeks, a new Buick Roadmaster had stood in the window of the biggest store on Main Street. Now, on the final celebration night of the country fair, it was to be raffled off. Raffled off means lottery ticket were the names were put in a jar, and a lottery would have been taken out. Whosoever name came out would get the car. The person would be the owner of the car then. Now that car was on display, and final day of the country fair, it was going to be raffled off. After watching the fireworks, I stayed in the shadows at the edge of the throng till the end, when the winning number was to be drawn out. Throng here means a large crowd, a huge crowd. And where was the narrator? Suppose the crowd is there, the narrator was right at the back and the side of the crowd, right at the end of the crowd. Now he was there till the name was being drawn out. Decorated in bunting. That bunting is streamers and the decorations and all. So the car was decorated. Decorated in bunting on a special platform, the Buick glittered under a dozen spotlights. The crowd held its breath as the mayor reached into the glass bowl for the lucky ticket. Never in my most lavish desires had I thought that Lady Luck would smile upon the only family in town without a car. Now, lavish desires means wishes, and lavish means very luxurious, very rich desires. He'd never even ever wished about such a thing would happen. But the loudspeaker boomed my father's name. Boomed means gave out a loud sound. Boomed my father's name. By the time I wormed my way up to the platform, the mayor had presented Dad with the keys and he had driven off amid cheers. Wormed. Now, since there was a crowd here and the little boy, the narrator, was right at the back of the crowd, he had wormed. Wormed means move like a worm from in between the crowd. Twisting here, wiggling there, and reaching to the front place right there. Now, he had wormed and he reached. By the time the mayor had already presented Dad with the keys and he had driven off amid cheers, in between. Amid means in the middle of. Cheers. Everybody was cheering because the lottery ticket was finally announced. I reached home in record time, imagining myself at the wheel of the Buick, driving my friends. Now the car had already reached his home and he kept running behind the car at a very high speed to be right there. So that was a record time. He was so excited with the getting on the new car. Very excited. He kept on imagining that he is taking his friends along in the car. And that was a record time that he had reached home. The house was dark, but for lights in the living room. That means lights only in the living room were switched on, but otherwise the rest of the house was dark. The Buick stood in the driveway. Right in front of the house, there's a driveway. So the car was standing there. Glistening in glory from the front window. Glistening, shining. From the front window, you could see the car was shining in glory. From the garage, I heard a snuffle from Barkis. Snuffle is heavy breathing. Now, he could hear the horse breathe heavily from the garage. Panting from my run. Now, when you run, you are actually taking in big breaths. That's panting. Panting from my run, I touched the car's smooth surface. What a feeling when you have a new car and you get the feel of that new car. It's altogether different for the little boy, especially. I touched the car's smooth surface, opened the door, and got inside. The luxurious interior had that wonderful new car smell. I studied the gleaming dashboard. Again, gleaming means shining. Since the dashboard is just the part in front of the car behind the steering where all you have those music systems and you have those things to keep you have places there. So that's your dashboard of the car. So that was also gleaming, shining because it's new. Gleaming dashboard. Turning my head to admire the back seat. Now he's there in front. When he turns back to see the back seat of the car, what all does he get to see there? I saw my father's sturdy figure through the rear window. Sturdy is tough and strong. Now he is there inside the car. He turns back to see. He sees his father outside the car from the rear window. Rear means the back window. He sees his father moving or walking down from there. So he sees, I saw my father's sturdy figure through the rear window. He was pacing the sidewalk, means he was walking down the sidewalk. I slammed the door and rushed over to him. The boy was so excited, he was so happy. He went running to his father. He got down the car, slammed the door. Slam means to shut the door with a loud sound. So he slammed the door of the car and he went rushing to his father. And he must have quickly hugged him and he was so excited, he was feeling so happy. Leave me alone. Now the father is a little upset or angry with something. Leave me alone. He snarled. Snarled means utter in an angry tone. So father is upset with something and he moved the little boy away and he said, leave me alone. I was taken aback. I could not have been more hurt. Shocked, I went into the house. Now the boy was so very excited, he went rushing towards father in that excitement. And what does he find? Father is upset about something, angry over something, and he moves the boy away. So the boy is hurt and upset and shocked. So all these feelings are inside the boy that time. He's shocked, he's upset, and he goes inside the house. Mother met me in the living room. Don't be upset, she said. Your father is struggling with an ethical problem. Ethical? Well, ethical means moral or of principles. So now that is a problem which is being faced by the boy. The father has some ethical problems, and the problem the boy is facing, he's upset, he's unable to understand, he's shocked what is happening. So mother says, your father is struggling with an ethical problem. We'll have to wait until he finds the right answer. What unethical about winning a Buick? The car may not be ours after all. There's a question. Now the mother is saying, when the boy is shocked, he is asking his mother, what's unethical about winning a Buick? Now the mother explains to the child again, the car may not be ours after all. There's a question. I shouted wildly. How can there be a question? It was announced downtown over the loudspeaker. Now the boy had heard it himself. That father's name was called out. So how can there be a question there? Come here, son. On the table, now the mother is showing something to the boy. Come here, son. On the table under the lamp were 2 raffle tickets. Raffle is lottery. Okay. Now there were 2 raffle tickets, numbers 348 and 349. Let me show this to you on the board here. Now here there was one ticket here. It was let's say 348, and there was another raffle ticket here under the lamp which was 349. Right. Now these were the 2 tickets, and what did mother tell him? Mother tells him that I shouted, the car may not be ours after all. There's a question, and then he asked what kind of a question there can be when I heard everything over the loudspeaker. Come here, son. On the table under the lamp were 2 raffle tickets. Numbers 348 and 349. The winning number was 348. This was the winning number. Do you see the difference between the two? Mother asked. I looked carefully. Now the boy is looking so very carefully at this ticket and at this ticket. I looked carefully. The only difference I can see is that 348 won. Hold 348 to the light and look hard. Now look hard means look very, very carefully. What was the difference the boy found? He just found that 348 was the winner and 349 was not the winner. That's the only difference he found. Nothing else. So what did mother tell him? Pick up the tickets, hold the ticket 348 to the light and look hard. So now mother tells him that you pick up this ticket in your hand and see it in the light very, very carefully. It required a lot of looking. Now he had to look very, very carefully, very minutely to actually find the difference there. It required a lot of looking to see the faint letter K dimly marked in pencil on one corner. Do you see the K? Now what was there? There was a slight little K written there. Very lightly with a pencil, very small. It was a K written out there and that was the only difference that he could find out. Just barely. Now the mother finally told him that there's a very slight K written there. So can you see that? Do you see the K? So the boy replies, just barely. Barely means hardly. I can hardly see it. It stands for Kendrick. Jim Kendrick, Dad's boss. Yes. Now the boy can't understand what is happening. She explained. Now the boy is going to tell what she explained. My father had asked Jim if he wanted to buy a ticket. Jim had murmured, why not? And turned back to what he was doing. It may never have crossed his mind again. That means casually father had asked his boss Jim Kendrick about do you want to buy a ticket? And Jim very casually said, he very murmured means speak in a very low tone. He just murmured and he said, why not? And he turned back to his work and maybe forgot about it also again. Never again it would have crossed his mind that he had bought a ticket. He had asked him to buy a ticket. Though Jim did not ask him to buy. Father asked, you want to buy a ticket? And Jim said casually, yes, why not? Dad then bought 2 tickets. Now Dad bought 2 tickets. In his own name and with his own money. So Dad bought both the tickets in his own name and with his own money. But just for keeping a track, that one ticket I'll keep for Jim Kendrick and one for myself. Maybe for that reason he had written that K out there because that was for Kendrick. Dad then bought 2 tickets in his own name with his own money, marking 348 for Kendrick. That was hardly visible and could be wiped out by the lightest rub of a thumb. That means that little mark with a pencil that he had put there could have been easily rubbed off with your thumb. If you just rubbed it off there, it would have gone. But to me, it was an open. Now the boy is saying, he's narrating the thing. To me, it was an open and shut case. Jim Kendrick was a multimillionaire. He was already a multimillionaire. His boss Jim was already a very, very rich man. A multimillionaire. He owned a dozen cars. He lived on an estate. Estate is a huge property. He lived on an estate with a staff of servants, including 2 chauffeurs. Chauffeurs are drivers. Including 2 chauffeurs. Another car meant less to him than a bridle on Barkis meant to us. Now what is a bridle? See here. It's a set of leather bands put around the horse's head to control it while riding. You must have seen the saddle area where the saddle is put on the horse and then the people sit on it. And that string which is tied around the horse to control its movement, that's a bridle. So having a bridle on the horse was something very rich for this family. But for Jim Kendrick, having another car was just a casual thing. It was a very ordinary thing for him because he already owned so many rich cars. He was such a rich man. I know he'll do what's right. Now, mother is telling her son, the father, I know what he'll do, what's right. I know he'll do what's right, mother said calmly. At last, we heard Dad's step on the front porch. Porch is the front area of the house. On the front porch, I held my breath. Now, why do you think he held his breath? He was a little nervous. He didn't know what was going to happen, whether father will keep the car or whether he'll give it away. So he was a little nervous. He held his breath. He went straight to the phone in the dining room and dialed. Kendrick's phone rang for a long time. A servant finally answered. From what Dad said at our end, I could tell that Kendrick had to be awakened. Now, what the boy could hear and make out was that Kendrick must have been sleeping and father must have told the servant that I need to talk to Kendrick and so kindly wake him up. He was annoyed at being roused from sleep. Now, who was annoyed? Obviously, Jim Kendrick, because he was sleeping. Now, roused from sleep means he was woken up from sleep. Annoyed means irritated. So, he was annoyed at being roused from sleep. My father had to explain the whole thing from the beginning, the entire thing, whatever happened from the beginning, he had to explain everything to Jim Kendrick. The next afternoon, Kendrick's two chauffeurs arrived in a station wagon, another car. Before driving the Buick away, they presented Dad with a box of cigars. That means the drivers, the chauffeurs of Jim Kendrick, they came to their house and they took the car with them, and in return, on behalf of Jim Kendrick, they handed him over with a box of cigars. We didn't get a car until after I was grown. Now the narrator has finally grown up, and only after then, that time, they had owned a car. But as time went on, my mother's aphorism is talking more of quotations most of the time. Aphorism, if you have character, you have the better part of wealth. That means she still stresses on that money was not so important as much as your character was. Now the boy had actually realized when he was small that time when the whole episode had happened, he did not realize at that time, but as the years went by, he must have gone through lots of things, he must have realized lots of things, and now he realized that what mother used to say, what mother says, was absolutely right. If you have character, you have the better part of wealth. Took on a new meaning. So now this saying, this quotation was a new meaning for the narrator. Looking back over the years, I know now we were never richer than we were at the moment when Dad made that telephone call. So when Dad actually had made that telephone call, they were the richest people with such a wonderful heart, with so much of honesty and truthfulness that Dad had called up. That's what he realized now. So that was more important. Even till date, children, whenever we come across a situation where money and character is required, standing right in front, always choose the right thing, the right decision, the character. People can give you money for doing a wrong work. Never ever spoil your character. It's always preferable that you keep your character, because character goes with you wherever you are. Money comes and goes. What is more effective is your character. I hope you people enjoyed the story, and I also hope that somewhere down the line, somewhere in your years to come, you will have a better character, better thinking, lots of honesty, and you'll be full of truthfulness. Thank you, children.